welcome to Bonita's Kitchen and thank you for joining us. What I'm going to be making for you today is pea soup and doughboys. You can make pea soup two different ways. You could do it with the cotton bag with your jig's dinner. You can put your peas into the bag, boil it with your dinner, and then what you got left over from your dinner, you could start your base of your soup. Or you can do it this way. You can soak a full bag of peas, which is about 2 cups, roughly about 2 cups. Soak it in water overnight and then drain the water off it the next day when you start your peas. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be making it right from scratch so that you would be familiar with that first. So I had soaked a full bag of peas. I'm going to drain the water off. I'm going to add about 5 to 6 cups of stock, which is my vegetable juice from my jig's dinner, or you could use beef broth or vegetable broth. You can buy that in the stores. I got carrot, turnip, celery, onion and potato. And over here I got salt beef that I already cooked, pre-cooked with my jig's dinner, but I'll explain what you can do if you don't have, if you never cooked jig's dinner and you're making it from scratch. I'll explain that. And I got about a cup of ham cut up. So we're going to take our peas now and we're going to put it right into the boiler, and you can put it all in there. And we're going to take about 6 cups of the broth or the stock from your boiled dinner. And now I'm going to put this on the heat, probably medium, for about 1 hour. So what I'm going to do now, like I was saying before, that this salt beef was cooked prior to. You can do that in advance by just putting the salt beef into a small pot of water, boil it down and then piece it apart like this. So I'm going to put the full cup in with the peas, and that takes some of the salt off because you don't want all that salt. And I want to put in a cup of ham, so I'm going to add this in as well directly while it's boiling first. We're not going to add the vegetables until it's halfway done and you can see that the peas is after breaking down. I'm just going to put this over on the stove top and I'll explain a little bit about that for you. So what I mean by soaking your peas overnight, you put the full bag into water, make sure it's covered over the top of the peas, and just leave it there until the next day. Or you can do it in the morning if you're making pea soup for the night time. And of course you can do pea soup without soaking it, but I recommend that you do because it breaks down the texture of the peas and it makes it softer and easier to boil, and it don't take so long to cook it then. Okay, so now I got the peas, the salt beef and the ham boiling over here on the stove top, and I got the lid a little lifted off like this because peas got a tendency of bubbling over once it starts to cook. So leave that there, stir it occasionally. You can have your vegetables all cut up in advance and in very small pieces. But what we'll do now, we'll make the paste for our doughboys. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to start boiling, we'll make our doughboys, and I'll just give you an idea of how to do this. So that's 1.5 cups of flour. You can use white or wheat, and we're going to be using 1/4 cup of soft butter. And if you don't have butter, you can substitute it with whatever you have in your place. And we're going to use a teaspoonful of salt. And we're going to be using 3 teaspoonfuls of baking powder. And we're also going to be using about 1/2 cup to, well, if you need 3/4 cup of water, and if you don't want to use water, you could use milk. And just stir this together until it makes a small paste. And you could use even 1 cup of water, but gradually add it in there because you don't want to add it all into one time just in case it's too much, because we just want to make like a paste, because it's going to be well, it's called doughboy batter, and we spoon it off into our soup when we're making it. So this is what it's going to look like. So what I'm going to do now, I have made in advance a pot of pea soup, and what we'll do is show you what it looked like to put the doughboys into it, and then after I'll also explain a little bit about the stages of what you would do for when you're making your pea soup and the next step. Okay, our soup is coming along nice. This is at the halfway point. You see the peas is starting to break down. It's starting to turn nice and creamy. What we're going to do now is add in the vegetables to this pot. We're going to be adding the potato, and I will put the amount on the recipe for you of each one, but again it varies with what you would like to add. You might want more of one thing than the others. So we're going to add all of that plus a half a teaspoonful of black freshly grated pepper. So we're going to stir all of this in there as such, and this is what it looks like. It's absolutely delicious. So now that we got all of our vegetables put into this pot, and you've seen how good it looks, you're going to keep this boiling there now for another hour, maybe an hour and a half, and keep stirring it occasionally so that it could start to break down the rest of your peas. What I'm going to do now is show you a pot of peas that I've already got cooked in advance, and then we're going to add in our batter to make our doughboys. Okay, so this is what your pea soup is going to look like once it's all cooked and the vegetables is broke down and blended in with it. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add in a tablespoonful of butter. This is just going to add to the creaminess, and you're going to mix that in through, and we're going to start spooning off our doughboys, and I'll show you what I mean by that. You put a small amount on your spoon like this, and then you're going to dollop it down into your pea soup, and we'll do that. We don't want too many of them. Well, I'll show you what I mean by that, because we don't want to overcrowd our pot. So I'm going to probably put about 4 or 5 on that there, because as they do, you could remove them and keep adding. So it looks like our doughboys are cooked. As you can see there, it takes about 4 to 5 minutes for those to boil, and they just stay floating on the top like that. So what I'm going to do now is take this pea soup back to my counter, and I'm going to plate some off to show you what it looks like. So now before I start plating the soup and show you, we'll do a little recap on what we've done so far. We started off soaking our peas overnight, and if you don't want to do it overnight, you can do it in the morning, be ready for your supper time. Drain that water off the peas, start the pot going with about 5 to 6 cups of broth, stock from your Jig's dinner or just the box stock. And then you're going to let that boil with your salt beef or your ham or half and half for about 1 hour. 1 hour and 15 minutes. Keep stirring, have the lid part way off. Then after that, you're going to add in all of your vegetables. I'll put the amount of vegetables that I used for this today, but if you want more or less of something, you can do that as well. And then let that boil then on a medium heat, stirring occasionally because peas start to get thick as it goes, and then let that boil until it breaks down totally, and it'll make a nice creamy soup, and that'll be about 1 hour and 15 minutes or less. And then turn it off, just let it sit until you're ready to add in your doughboys. And you're seeing what we did then by spooning it off the spoon, and that takes about 4 to 5 minutes. So you'll notice stages as you go, because the soup will start to get nice and creamy. Okay, so let's scoop up some of our soup. So now let's start scooping up our soup. As you can see, it's nice and steamy. I'm gonna take out a couple of the doughboys and put into the plate. And those of you that don't know what doughboys is, like you said, it's just batter made to put inside of the peas to boil with it, and it's just nice soft pieces of dough. So I'm going to bring you in a little closer and we'll have a look at this. So I'm going to do one more doughboy, and then some more of that meat and vegetables. So this is what your pea soup is going to look like. I'm going to top it off with just a little bit of fresh herbs. You don't need to have it, but it just makes a nice little flavor to it, and some more black pepper. And this is what it looks like, nice and creamy and very tasty. And if you've got any soup left over, which in my house seldom do it be any soup left over, you can bottle it. So take a small mason jar or a large one and scoop up the doughboys and all, just put it right into the soup, and then when you got that done, clean around the rims, make sure it's nice and clean, and then seal it off, store it in your fridge, and then you can eat it as you want it. So right now you probably can hear in the background the pot of soup still boiling, so I'm at almost the end stage of that one, but this is what it's going to look like when it's completed. I hope you found this portion of Peas Soup and Doughboys helpful for you. I'm going to have the recipe available for you to view. It's going to be posted on YouTube, and the recipe will be down in under the video. It's also going to be posted on Bonita's Kitchen. That's www.bonitaskitchen.com, and you can get it there, and you can print off the recipe, or on my Facebook page. So please take the time to subscribe to Bonita's Kitchen on YouTube, and then each time we post a new video, we will send a notification to you that it's ready to view. So I hope this is helpful for you today. Thank you for joining us for Bonita's Kitchen, and you have a wonderful day.